Our story begins in a cluttered workshop where a mysterious figure is humming and brewing a strange potion. Suddenly, a woman named Hermie jolts awake in a bed, feeling completely exposed and disoriented. Furious and confused, she screams at the man responsible, demanding answers for her current state. As she spirals, wondering how this all happened, the scene cuts to a grand estate. The wizard tries to make a swift escape in a carriage, but a sharp voice from a balcony stops him cold, demanding to know where he's going. Waking up palm-sized inside a cage, guild treasurer Hermie absolutely explodes. She screams at the wizard, calling him a debtor and a kidnapper for what he's done. Unfazed, he just tells her to be quiet, complaining about her loud voice. Furious, she demands he change her back immediately. But the wizard casually blames her for touching his experiment, adding that he's too broke to make a cure anyway. A flashback reveals the real problem. She was just confronting him for skipping out on a payment, which caused this whole disaster. The wizard tries to stop her, but Hermie is done playing games. She declares that if he can't pay his bill, she's taking back the fairy's tear he bought from the guild. Ignoring his frantic pleas that the experiment is almost finished, she plunges her hand into the glowing potion and snatches the crystal. She announces it's officially repossessed. But as she holds it, the gem erupts in a blinding flash of blue light. A strange feeling washes over Hermie as she realizes her own voice now sounds unusually tiny. The wizard cheers that his experiment actually worked, but Hermie can only stare in horror at her miniature body as she's carted away toward a massive, unfamiliar estate. The scene flashes back to their argument. She'd refused to let him buy another fairy's tear, screaming that his debt had already pushed the guild to the brink of bankruptcy. Back in the present, the wizard leans in toward her cage with a smirk. He shamelessly asks for her help, leaving Hermie absolutely speechless with rage at his nerve. The wizard lays out his crazy plan. If Hermie acts for him, he can earn enough money to fund his research and finally create a cure. She doesn't trust him one bit, but the fear of being stuck this way forever leaves her with no real choice. Reluctantly, she asks what he wants. He grins and reveals the absurd catch: she must pretend to be a fairy. He explains that eccentric collectors will pay a fortune for a mythical creature. Hermie absolutely snaps, screaming that he can't just sell her, but he nervously insists he's just leaving her in their care. The wizard tries to smooth things over, promising that once his research succeeds, he'll have enough money to buy her back. But Hermie isn't having it and asks how she could possibly trust him. So he offers to write a contract. Thinking fast, Hermie demands penalty clauses and a promise to rescue her within a week of him finding a cure. But she quickly spots a huge loophole. The contract doesn't say what his research will succeed. The wizard just shrugs, tucks the contract away for safekeeping, and leaves a furious Hermie with absolutely no power. But Hermie isn't going down without a fight. From inside her cage, she lays down the law. If he double-crosses her, she'll spill his secret to the whole world. And if she dies, he's coming with her. The terrified wizard quickly agrees as their cart rattles to a stop. Hermie panics, wondering if anyone will believe she's a fairy without wings. The wizard just waves it off, claiming they were damaged during capture. He confidently says that since no one knows what a real fairy looks like, a rare one will fetch an insane price. The wizard reveals the name of their client, the infamous Marquis Froey Ozette. Hermie is horrified. While the man is known for his looks and wealth, merchants know him as a ruthless collector with impossible standards. She frantically argues that such a picky noble will instantly see through their lie. Unfazed, the wizard tells her to stay quiet and confidently approaches the estate guard. He demands an audience with the Marquis, announcing that he has brought a real-life fairy. The shocked guard stumbles for a moment before rushing inside to deliver the incredible news. As they wait, Hermie frantically whispers, questioning if he really thinks they'll survive after lying to a powerful noble. The wizard just tells her to act the part for a couple of months until his research is done. That's the last straw for Hermie. She erupts, screaming that this is all his fault and calling him a lunatic. Their shouting is suddenly cut short by a calm, dangerous voice commenting on the noise. It's Marquis Froey. The wizard goes pale. Looking down on them, the Marquis warns that this late-night visit better be worth his time. Marquis Froey considers the wizard's claim about a fairy. As he reaches for the cage, the wizard panics, quickly saying he put a magic seal on it to prevent an escape. Unimpressed, Froey asks how he's supposed to confirm the creature's authenticity. Cornered, the wizard taps the cage and orders Hermie to come out. Furious at being treated like a pet, she peeks out from under the cloth, ready to glare. But when she sees the Marquis's face, her anger vanishes. She can only stare, completely stunned by how incredibly handsome he is. The deal is done. The wizard walks away, leaving Hermie trapped inside an ornate golden cage. She finds herself completely alone with the intimidating Marquis Froey. He just stands there, silently staring down at her with an unreadable expression. Hermie's heart pounds in her chest. She frantically wonders if he already suspects she isn't a real fairy. Trying to calm her nerves, she reasons that he wouldn't have actually bought her if he had any real doubts. Still, his intense gaze and stunning features leave her completely overwhelmed by her new, terrifying reality. Marquis Froey peers into the cage, simply stating how small she is. The wizard sweats, nervously claiming that's just how fairies are. Hermie internally panics, convinced his terrible acting will get them caught. She knows she can't rely on this fool. Lying to a powerful noble comes with a very sharp price, and a terrifying image of a grim fate flashes through her mind. With her life on the line, she has to commit to the role. Stealing her nerves, she wonders how a brand new fairy is even supposed to act. Suddenly, an idea clicks for Hermie. She knows how she has to act. She imagines herself being an enchanting, alluring creature, completely captivating the handsome Marquis. But when it's showtime, she loses her nerve and dives right back under the cloth to hide. Froey is startled, wondering why she disappeared again. The wizard, however, goes into a full-blown panic, yelling for her to come out. Hermie quickly rethinks her strategy. A true fairy would be wary of cunning humans, not just try to flatter them. Her brilliant performance is already a total disaster. The wizard panics and starts shaking the cage, sending Hermie tumbling inside. She feels dizzy and furious at the fool for ruining her plan. Suddenly, a hand steadies the cage. It's Marquis Froey. He coolly tells the wizard to stop, stating that he scared the tiny creature. The wizard backpedals, claiming he just wanted to check her condition. Then, he reaches to lift the cloth for a better look. Hermie's heart stops. She isn't wearing anything underneath, and this idiot is about to expose everything. The wizard yanks the cloth clean off the cage. In a desperate scramble, Hermie clings to the bars, screaming for him to stop, but it's too late. She's completely exposed. Pure terror floods her as she imagines the awful consequences of being discovered. Their eyes meet, and she's certain he saw everything. As tears well up, she braces for the worst. But Marquis Froey remains silent for a beat. Then, without a change in his expression, he turns to the wizard and calmly asks for the price. The wizard stammers, trying to drive up the price, but Froey cuts him off, asking again how much he wants. Hearing the wizard's timid suggestion of 300 gold, Froey counters with a shocking 2,000. The deal is settled instantly. The wizard grabs the cage, claiming he needs to check the security magic. He leans in and whispers for Hermie to stay safe, but she isn't having it. With ice in her voice, she threatens to expose every one of his scams if he dares to abandon her there. Marquis Froey grows tired of the delay and asks if the wizard is done. The man hastily confirms the cage's magic is secure. But Froey is sharp. He heard her muttering and asks if the creature can speak. The wizard, thinking on his feet, claims she's a clever fairy named Hermie who will open up with good food and affection. From inside the cage, Hermie can only whisper a doubtful, "Really?" Froey picks up the cage, a soft smile playing on his lips. He gazes down at his new prize, hoping she opens her heart soon. Hiding under a cloth, Hermie is completely baffled. After paying a fortune, all Marquis Froey does is offer her a giant cherry and stare. She concludes that nobles are just plain weird. Noticing his new pet isn't eating, Froey quietly turns and leaves the room. Once the coast is clear, Hermie peeks out. Her hunger is intense, but escaping is her top priority. She quickly devises a plan. She'll act scared for a week, then angry, and finally play cute to lower his guard. With her new strategy set, she grabs the cherry and settles in. As another noble, Jovern, waits outside, Marquis Froey is completely lost in thought. It's revealed that owning a fairy has been his dream ever since he was a little boy. He even made a request to the Mage Tower but never actually expected to get one. He can't believe a clumsy-looking wizard was the one to finally deliver, and on top of that, she's surprisingly cute. Froey knows his reputation encourages scammers, which is why he always carefully verifies the authenticity of every rare item he acquires. Froey admits to himself that this purchase was completely impulsive. He's normally so cautious, but he didn't even get the creature appraised. The moment he saw her, he felt an irresistible urge to own her. Now he's struggling. She won't eat and stays hidden, making him realize that caring for a living being is much harder than maintaining his usual treasures. As he sighs in frustration, Jevern's carriage pulls up to the grand estate, having endured the long trip for this very meeting. Marquis Froey enters his massive conservatory, a stunning personal zoo filled with exotic creatures. He's greeted by another collector, Jevern, who immediately starts throwing shade. Jevern mockingly asks what brings a noble like Froey to such a filthy, foul-smelling beast den. Froey points out the hypocrisy, but Jevern just smirks, saying a beast den doesn't require a dignified welcome. The real greeting, however, comes from a nearby cockatoo. It suddenly turns to Jevern and loudly squawks, "Sucker, sucker," leaving the silver-haired noble stunned. The cockatoo wastes no time roasting Froey, squawking that he's an idiot who keeps getting scammed. Jevern roars with laughter, praising his bird's cleverness. Flustered, Froey tells him to stop teaching the animal nonsense, admitting he actually came for advice. Jevern is floored. The great collector needs his help. Once they're seated, Froey awkwardly confesses that he's acquired a cute little hamster. Jevern is completely stunned by the news, but Froey just calmly asks if that's really so strange. Jevern explodes, yelling about how Froey, a known animal hater, bought a hamster. He reminds the Marquis that he instantly rejected a priceless, white tiger Jevern once gifted him. Flustered, Froey clarifies that he doesn't hate animals, he just worries about shedding fur and his precious art getting damaged. The tiger was simply too big. Jevern smirks, finding the excuse hilarious. He asks if Froey really needs help raising a simple hamster, then wonders if his friend actually got scammed. The question leaves Froey completely speechless. Froey explains that his new pet is tiny, extremely sensitive, and won't stop hiding. He tells Jevern he can barely even see its face. When Jevern asks if it's eating, Froey admits it refused the fresh fruit he offered. The expert reassures a concerned Froey that it's likely just adjusting to its new home. To help, Jevern suggests adding a little house to its cage, explaining that small creatures feel safe in enclosed spaces. This advice sparks a memory for Froey, who recalls his little, Hermie, constantly hiding inside a handkerchief. Froey connects the dots, realizing his pet and hamsters share the same instincts. When Jevern asks if he's tried handling it, Froey scoffs that it's unnecessary. This sends Jevern into a frenzy, who declares that taming is the best part of owning an animal. He passionately explains that physical contact builds trust and will make it less scared. As Jevern continues, Froey imagines his tiny Hermie following him around. The idea completely captivates him, and he drifts off into a daydream, deaf to his friend calling his name. Froey's imagination runs wild. He pictures a tiny, devoted Hermie calling his name, clinging to him affectionately. In this perfect daydream, she declares that he's the only one she has in the entire world. The idea of her being completely dependent on him is incredibly appealing. Snapping back to reality, a sly smile creeps onto Froey's face. He decides that this whole taming thing actually sounds pretty good. With his mind made up, the scene transitions as a grand set of doors closes, marking the end of the conversation. Fresh off his chat with Jevern, Froey is ready to start his taming mission. He remembers step 1 for small animals: be quiet and don't frighten them. Moving with intense focus, he even removes his jacket to minimize any noise. He believes that if he's this careful, Hermie won't get startled. But inside, Hermie is already on edge, finding his unnaturally silent approach deeply suspicious. Her instincts prove right when Froey suddenly grabs the entire cage and lifts it, causing her to gasp in absolute shock at the sudden movement. As Froey sheds his jacket, Hermie is left speechless. She had assumed he was just a rich noble who stayed inside all day, but his physique told a completely different story. His broad shoulders and solid build were, to her surprise, exactly her type. She finds it impossible to look away and figures it's only fair to stare a little. Her admiration is cut short when Froey, now dressed, walks toward the cage. Panicking that she's been caught, Hermie freezes, but his attention isn't on her. Instead, he's focused on the cherry she left unfinished earlier. Hermie panics, thinking Froey is angry about the leftover cherry. She mentally defends herself, arguing that the fruit was the size of her torso, and she was simply full. But Froey isn't mad at all. He lifts the cherry, completely fascinated by the impossibly tiny bite marks. He can't believe a mouth that small even has teeth. A strange thought pops into his head. Would she bite his finger, too? Suddenly, an intense, unfamiliar feeling washes over him, a powerful urge to pull something small and precious into a tight embrace. Struggling with this strange, intense feeling, Froey remembers Jevern's advice on how to tame a creature. The first step? Close the distance and call their name often. Putting the plan into action, he approaches the cage and gently calls out to Hermie, asking if she was okay. With a smirk, he thinks about how natural the taming process is. He hopes she lets her guard down soon, because he is seriously looking forward to the day she is finally and completely tamed by him. The next morning, disaster nearly strikes. A maid cleaning Froey's room spots something odd on the floor near the cage. She picks up what looks like tiny cotton balls, casually wondering if they're just stuffing that fell out of the bedding. Making a mental note to replace it later, she moves on. Little does she know, she's holding Hermie's discarded clothes. Hidden under the sheet, Hermie is absolutely panicked. When the maid walks away, none the wiser, Hermie lets out a huge sigh of relief. That was way too close. After her narrow escape, Hermie realizes the maid almost found more than just her clothes. Those cotton balls were her makeshift toilet. She grumbles to herself about the ridiculousness of it all. Does no one think fairies need to use the bathroom? It reminds her of when Froey proudly brought her a hamster hideout. She was completely baffled, wondering if he thought she was some kind of pet. The little house gives her some privacy, but Hermie knows this isn't a long-term solution. She needs to figure something out fast. While trying to get situated, Hermie suddenly freezes. A voice calls out her name, and she turns to see Froey standing right there. Totally caught off guard, she clutches her makeshift sheet toga in a panic, wondering when he even got here. He reaches for her, but she wants no part of it. Hermie makes a mad dash for her little hideout for cover. In the sudden chaos, Froey takes a wrong step off his bed and goes down hard, hitting the floor with a loud thud. He's left completely dazed by the fall. Despite his nasty fall, Froey's first concern is for Hermie. He calls out to her cage, asking if she's okay after the commotion. Hidden under her sheet, Hermie trembles, completely mortified by the whole situation. She yells at him to be quiet, feeling like she could just die of embarrassment. Still on the floor, Froey's voice softens. He understands she's still wary of him but insists he's genuinely worried she might be hurt. To show he means no harm, he pulls out a small pouch, guessing she's tired of only eating fruit. From inside the cage, Hermie weighs his offer. She has to admit he's got a point. She is seriously tired of only eating fruit. It's been a whole week since she arrived, and she decides it's time to take a small step forward. Gathering her courage, she reaches out and accepts the flower-shaped cookie from his hand. Froey is completely stunned. He watches, totally captivated, as his tiny fairy finally takes the food he gave her. For him, this small act of trust is a huge breakthrough. Bursting with pride, Froey tells his friend Jevern all about the huge milestone. He gushes that his fairy, who wouldn't even show her face before, finally took a cookie right from his hand. He's completely over the moon, asking Jevern if he can believe it. But Jevern is totally unimpressed, deadpanning that Froey is just a doting fool. Froey insists he doesn't understand just how tiny her hands are, but his friend simply compares her to a hamster, thinking he's making a big deal over nothing. Froey continues to gush, telling Jevern the tiny teeth marks she left on the cookie almost made him faint. Annoyed, Jevern suggests that if the fairy is so cute, Froey should just show her to him. Froey's friendly demeanor vanishes as he shoots down the idea immediately. When Jevern threatens to barge in and see for himself, Froey calmly bans him from the estate. He smugly adds that he doesn't need his friend's help anymore, because his fairy, Hermie, has finally opened her heart to him. Jevern absolutely loses it, grabbing his friend in shock. Jevern is still in shock that Froey gave his hamster a name. Froey shoots back, asking if he was supposed to raise her without one. His friend admits it's just hard to believe the notorious collector is so obsessed with a living thing. Froey's mood suddenly shifts, and he finally opens up about his past. He explains he suffered terribly as a child under his stepmother. Later, at the academy, jealous rivals caused a serious horse riding accident that left him unable to walk for 2 years, all while his enemies celebrated his misery. Froey explains that he had to fight desperately just to get back on his feet after the accident. But even during those dark times, he clung to a single happy memory from his childhood. It was a fairy tale book his mother used to read to him when he was sick. He remembers the warmth of her embrace as she told him stories about a boy and his adventures with a fairy. Froey confesses that this single, happy moment is the real reason he has always wanted a fairy of his very own. Jevern stares, completely baffled, asking what the hamster has to do with any of this. Froey, lost in thought, explains that it's all because of that childhood fairy tale. He confesses that he didn't just want a fairy, he wanted to possess everything that appeared in that book. The clothes, the food, and all the treasures the protagonist obtained on his journey. He wanted to recreate that perfect, happy memory. And the final, most crucial piece of his collection, he reveals, was always meant to be the fairy herself. Froey watches Hermie eat, gently asking if she likes the snack. This has become a daily routine, and Hermie notes his intense fascination with her fairy diet. Honestly, she's sick of fruit and is dying for some real food, but she knows she has to keep quiet for now. Meanwhile, Froey is conducting an experiment. Seeing her react, he realizes she might understand him completely. But Hermie just misinterprets his focus, deciding that the fearsome Marquis is actually a total airhead. At first, Hermie couldn't figure Froey out, but now she realizes his intense staring is just his weird way of showing affection. The man she's seeing, a flustered pretty boy losing his mind over a tiny creature, can't be the same person from the rumors. Stories painted him as a heartless monster who drove his family out, betrayed his allies, and trusted no one. But as Hermie watches him blush, she decides those rumors must be lies. Clearly, they were just started by people who were jealous of his good looks. Seeing how gentle Froey is, Hermie starts to think maybe she can let her guard down. She decides to speed up her plan to bond with him, but also wants to prove that fairies aren't easy to handle. Her scheming is cut short when a massive foot suddenly kicks the side of her cage, sending her tumbling across the floor. She lets out a terrified scream and scrambles under her tiny blanket. Shaking with a mix of fear and rage, Hermie silently demands to know what on earth he was just trying to do. Froey quickly tries to explain himself. He wasn't trying to hurt her, he just thought her little crown was cute and wanted to touch it. But Hermie is absolutely furious. Forgetting her entire act, she lets her anger slip and screams that he's an idiot. Froey is completely frozen in shock. It's the first time she's ever spoken. Instead of being offended, he's totally captivated, thinking even her angry voice is adorable. With a gentle smile, he apologizes and tries to coax her out, promising her something even tastier to eat. Hermie is shocked to see Froey smiling after she insulted him. Realizing he's a total pushover, she decides to push her luck and continues her tantrum, refusing the food he offers. But her tough act completely falls apart when he reveals the treat is a warm slice of apple pie. It's her absolute favorite. She tries to resist, telling herself not to be bought so easily. But the incredible smell is too much to handle. Seconds later, she's happily stuffing her face, her anger completely forgotten over the delicious dessert. Froey watches her with a huge smile, asking if the pie was good. He's completely smitten, telling her he'll bring her anything she wants to eat. After her snack, Hermie realizes she feels a little grimy. Mustering up her courage, she timidly asks for some bathwater, so she can wash up. Froey looks confused, asking her what she just said. She repeats her request, then immediately panics, worrying if it's a weird thing for a fairy to ask for. Froey just strokes his chin, seriously considering her odd demand. Froey agrees to bring her the bathwater, and Hermie is absolutely thrilled, thinking it's been ages since she's felt clean. But her excitement dies when Froey explains his plan. He's not opening the cage. Instead, he's just going to pour the water on her from above. Utterly horrified, Hermie screams at him to open the door, calling him an idiot. He calmly refuses, holding up a warm cloth and telling her not to be scared. Insulted, she furiously yells back that she isn't afraid of him at all. Hermie completely loses it, screaming that there's no way she can wash with him staring right at her. She calls him a fool, totally mortified by the situation. Froey, however, is completely unfazed. He calmly offers a simple fix. He just won't look. After promising to close his eyes, he carefully pours the warm water into her tub. Hermie sinks into the water, absolutely melting with relief. It's been a week since she's felt properly clean. As she relaxes, Froey quietly watches from the side, surprising her by softly apologizing. Of course, Froey totally lied about closing his eyes. He watches her intently, admitting to himself he couldn't miss such a cute sight. As she washes, he's struck by how beautiful she is. He's also impressed that she has the intelligence to feel embarrassed, realizing she's far smarter than a simple talking parrot. Once she seems finished, he asks if she's done. Hermie immediately requests some clothes. Froey is momentarily stumped, wondering what he could possibly own that would fit her tiny frame. He agrees to find something and tells her to dry off. Wrapped in a makeshift towel and finally clean, Hermie feels incredibly drowsy under the warm sunlight. Froey watches her from outside the cage, a softer look on his face. He quietly asks if she's asleep, but gets no reply. The long week has caught up with her, and she's already drifted off, her head nodding forward. Seeing her sleeping so soundly, a faint, gentle smile appears on his face. He decides not to disturb her, turning to leave the room while softly wishing his tiny new houseguest a good night. Hermie is absolutely overjoyed with her new outfit, a gorgeous white dress that fits like a glove. Froey watches her, a happy smirk on his face as he asks if she likes it. Thrilled, she thanks him and declares that she can finally go outside now. Froey's expression immediately shifts to confusion. Before he can ask what she means, a bright light erupts from her back, and a pair of stunning wings appear. She bids him goodbye and flies right out of the cage. Froey panics, screaming her name as she vanishes. Froey jolts awake from a terrifying nightmare, desperately yelling for someone not to leave him. He's panting, realizing it was only a dream. His panicked cry wakes Hermie, who sleepily calls his name and asks if something is wrong. Trying to play it cool, Froey tells her it's nothing and that she should go back to sleep. But Hermie points out that with him gone for work, she'll be completely bored all day. Her simple complaint makes him pause, giving him a lot to think about. Froey finds himself thinking about when everything changed. For the longest time, he was perfectly happy being alone. In fact, he preferred keeping people at a distance, seeing close relationships as a total burden. But then there's Hermie. It's impossible to keep a wall up with this tiny creature who so openly says she's lonely. Froey realizes he has zero defense against her pure, unfiltered affection. He finds it all so unbearably adorable as he gently strokes her head, and she leans into his touch. Froey asks if her toys aren't enough, but Hermie just sighs, complaining that she's so bored she could die playing alone. This hits Froey hard. He knows she gets depressed cooped up in the cage, but after his nightmare, he's terrified to open it, scared she'll disappear forever. He can't stand seeing her so miserable, though. Making a split-second decision, he tells her they should go out. A shocked Hermie looks up as he calmly confirms they're going for a walk to cure her boredom. Keeping his promise, Froey carries Hermie's cage out into the sprawling estate gardens. The sight is absolutely breathtaking, leaving Hermie completely speechless with wonder. She can't believe her eyes, exclaiming that she's never seen such a massive and beautiful garden before. A small smile plays on Froey's lips as he asks if she likes it. Hermie enthusiastically confirms that she loves it. Ever the worrier, he then gently checks if the sun is too hot for her, his concern obvious even in the simple question. Hermie assures Froey she's okay, absolutely glowing as she takes in the garden. She stretches happily, exclaiming how wonderful the fresh air and warm sunshine feel on her skin. Seeing her so full of life brings a gentle smile to Froey's face. But his peaceful expression suddenly darkens as a disturbing memory seems to flash through his mind. Without any explanation, he tells Hermie to wait there for a moment. He turns and strides away, leaving a totally bewildered Hermie wondering what just happened. Lying in her cage, Hermie flops onto the bed, completely drained. She sighs that the life of a pet fairy is not easy at all, and starts to question if this is really okay. Her entire day is a stressful performance, acting cute, begging for Froey's attention, and pretending to be a naive fairy so he doesn't get bored. She feels like she's walking a tightrope just to hold on to his interest. Totally sick of babbling like a toddler, she clenches her fists and lets out a silent, frustrated scream. All her frustration finally boils over in a silent, imaginary scream. Hermie imagines letting Froey have it, calling him a coward for locking her up. She wants to yell that she doesn't even have wings to escape. Most of all, she wishes she could just ask him if he ever considered that she might not be a fairy at all. But she knows she can't. The moment she tells the truth, she'll be tossed aside. Realizing complaining is useless, she resolves to keep up the act, as Froey's affection is her only key to survival. Froey suddenly returns, interrupting Hermie's troubled thoughts. He kneels before her cage, presenting a beautiful bouquet of hydrangeas. With a gentle smile, he explains that he wanted to show her the summer blooms from the garden. Hermie is completely stunned by this unexpected kindness. Noticing her silence, Froey asks if she dislikes flowers. Flustered, she quickly denies it, stammering that it isn't the case at all. His warm expression shifts to one of slight confusion, wondering why she's acting so strangely. Blushing, Hermie makes a bold move. Gripping the bars of her cage, she tells Froey she doesn't want flowers, she wants him to stay by her side. Froey is totally caught off guard by her earnest plea. He offers a surprising solution. He'll work from his room from now on, just to be near her. Her eyes light up with hope as she eagerly accepts his deal. Holding the beautiful flowers, Hermie celebrates her small victory. She's sure that if she stays this close to him, the cold Marquis will eventually open his heart. Froey's quiet time is shattered when his rival, Jovern, appears out of nowhere. Froey immediately calls him out for being shameless and barging in uninvited. But Jovern's attempt to get a rise out of him fails spectacularly. With a smug grin, Froey reminds him of the huge debt he owes for the greenhouse, asking when he plans to pay it back. Flustered, Jovern calls him petty. Froey twists the knife, sarcastically offering to be his emotional trash can before casually mentioning how cute Hermie has been. The comment hits a raw nerve, and Jovern gets so mad he has to excuse himself. Jovern isn't leaving just yet, he's got more to say. Froey calmly sips his tea, totally unfazed by a sudden beeping alarm. He cuts to the chase, asking Jovern what his problem is with Hermie's cuteness. Jovern admits the issue is that she's too cute, beyond all common sense. Froey's mind is instantly flooded with images of Hermie asking him to stay. He blushes and clutches his chest, feeling his heart pound. Noticing his rival's flustered state, Jovern sarcastically asks if he's sure he hasn't just gone crazy. Jovern tells Froey he sounds completely out of his mind. Froey tries to defend himself, admitting these intense feelings only happen around Hermie. He confesses that when he looks at her, he doesn't even feel like himself anymore. Jovern cuts straight to the point, diagnosing him on the spot. Froey sounds exactly like a man who's fallen in love. Froey panics, arguing it can't be love because she's a hamster. But the idea sparks a bizarre thought, and he asks Jovern a wild question. What if Hermie grew to be his size? Jovern answers the insane question, admitting that a human-sized Hermie sounds terrifying, but would also be beautiful. Froey barely hears him, completely lost in his own head as he calls it a pointless fantasy that could never happen. He's already deep in a daydream, picturing a tiny, human-form Hermie standing in his hands. He imagines her growing to his height, her beauty increasing with her size. In his mind, he could finally hold her tightly and feel her touch his face, ending with him pulling her into a soft, gentle embrace. Froey's daydream ends with the beautiful thought that a life with her would fill his empty heart with happiness. Fast forward to day 50 of Hermie's captivity. She sleep-talks Froey's name, and he instantly responds. Still half-conscious, she mumbles a demand for more snacks, which he agrees to immediately. She reflects on how he moved her from his office into his bedroom, staying by her side all day. They've grown much closer, but a nagging sense of unease makes her wonder if the situation is truly okay. Hermie jolts awake from her sleep. Froey is right there, calling her name and asking if she needs more snacks. Instead of answering, Hermie surprises him by walking over to his hand and giving his finger a gentle peck. Froey is completely stunned, asking her what that was. She explains it was a gesture of gratitude for taking such good care of her. Flustered, Froey doesn't back away. He presses his cheek against the cage bars, looking completely serious as he asks her to do it again, just once more, leaving Hermie speechless. Hermie hesitates, wondering if the sensation will linger if she does it again. Froey presses his face closer, desperately pleading for just one more. Giving in, she steps out of the cage and plants a soft peck on his cheek. The Marquis is absolutely dazed, touching the spot she kissed. As he blushes, Hermie realizes he's actually cute. She questions her sanity after being locked up for so long, but watching him smile so earnestly, she admits to herself that she's actually starting to enjoy his devoted attention. As Hermie reflects on his affection, she realizes everything Froey owns seems to sparkle. But she quickly snaps herself out of the fantasy, refusing to get swept away by her feelings. She can't afford to lose her focus. A grim thought settles in. Froey is fascinated by fairy Hermie, not the real her. As a human, she's just an ordinary commoner, not a rare treasure. She believes that once the magic is undone, she'll hold no value to him. She resolves to keep her emotional distance. Hermie reminds herself of the rules she must follow: no touching and absolutely no kissing. No matter how captivating Froey might be, she has to resist him. Her deep thoughts are interrupted when Froey asks what's on her mind. Playing it cool, she cheekily replies that she was just thinking his mother gave birth to a very handsome son. A flustered Froey tells her she sounds like an old lady. Watching him blush, Hermie worries that he's so perfect, every other man will look like a squid in comparison. Hermie asks Froey to move her cage to the window for a better view, and he happily agrees. As he carries her over, her mind is racing. She knows she needs to escape soon. This isn't her life. She's a human, not a pet in a cage. She tells herself not to be swayed by Froey's kindness or develop feelings for him. Getting attached would be a trap she could never break free from. After placing her by the window, Froey's footsteps quietly fade as he walks away, leaving her alone with her resolve. Meanwhile, the wizard Jovern shows up at Froey's massive estate, looking for the Marquis. When a guard asks his business, Jovern awkwardly states he's there to get the fairy back. But he gets shut down immediately, with the guard coldly saying he'll pass the message along. Left standing outside, Jovern sighs in frustration, grumbling about the 2,000 gold he was paid. What a waste. Unaware of Jovern's failed attempt, Hermie stares grimly from her cage. She knows she has to play along if she wants to live. One wrong move, and it's all over. Jovern remembers Hermie's fiery eyes. She's not the type to go down without a fight. He tells the butler that all he needs to do is take her back and undo the magic to settle her debt. But the butler shuts him down completely, informing him that the Marquis refuses to meet or even discuss the fairy. Jovern is floored. His mind immediately leaps to a dark conclusion. Could she be dead? As the grim possibility sinks in, a selfish, new thought emerges. If she died, he wonders, does that mean her contract is now void? Jovern convinces himself that he's done everything he could. He brought the money and tried to get her back, so it's not his fault. He figures the Marquis will take good care of her anyway and decides to leave for good. As his carriage departs, the scene shifts back to Hermie. A sudden wave of sadness hits her, and tears begin to fall. She wonders why she's crying, feeling completely trapped and hopeless. A harsh reality sets in as time passes. It has now been 60 long days since she was confined. Hermie feels utterly trapped inside her cage, emotions overwhelming her to the point of tears. Suddenly, the door opens and another woman rushes in, calling out for Froey. She clings to his arm, complaining about how late he is and how bored she was without him. But Froey's attention is somewhere else entirely. He completely ignores the woman beside him, his gaze fixed on Hermie. He apologizes for the wait, softly telling his tiny captive that he missed her. He then gently reaches in and lifts her out of the cage. The other woman begs Froey not to abandon her, but his attention is fixed elsewhere. He promises his tiny prize that he would never leave someone so adorable. These words echo in Hermie's mind, becoming her only lifeline. When Froey is gone, a suffocating anxiety grips her. She claws at the floor and rages against the bars until exhaustion takes over, leaving only a crushing sense of despair. Trapped in a fog of endless fear, she realized that Froey was the only person in the world who could even see her. Froey is the guy who locked her up, but he's also the only one who can save her. This twisted reality messes with Hermie's head, mixing hope with total despair. After 2 long months, she decides she's done waiting around. Gathering her courage, she calls out to him, begging to be let out of the stuffy cage. She just wants to be by his side. Froey listens to her plea, his expression unreadable, before delivering a single, crushing word. No. The cold rejection completely shatters her last bit of hope. Froey twists the knife further, offering a soft apology and telling her, not yet. Desperate for any sign of hope, Hermie pleads to know when he will finally let her out. But he completely dismisses her. Claiming he's tired and needs to sleep, Froey turns his back on the cage. She screams his name, begging him not to leave her alone again, but he walks away without a second glance. Several days pass, and Hermie remains trapped in her golden prison, her desperate pleas completely ignored. Froey expected Hermie to keep freaking out, but she did the opposite. She returned to her quiet, usual self. He secretly finds her incredibly adorable this way. In his mind, she greets him like a little baby bird, totally dependent on him. This sight stirs a powerful, possessive feeling inside him. The truth is, when she begged to be let out, it was like a splash of cold water. He admits to himself that he's just too scared. He knows she follows him, but he's terrified that if he opens the cage door, she'll run away. Froey realizes he can't just leave her locked up forever. He needs a foolproof plan, some kind of magic to ensure she won't escape if he opens the door. But he dismisses the thought for now. Just then, Hermie calls his name. Leaning close to the cage, he gently asks if she's still in a bad mood. Instead of anger, she reaches through the bars, grabbing his finger. She softly tells him she's fine, as long as she has him. That's enough. His heart skips a beat, and a blush spreads across his face as he whispers back, "Me too." Froey completely short-circuits from her confession, stammering for Hermie to step back for a moment. But she panics, asking why he would push her away when all she wants is to stay closer. To prove her point, She nuzzles his finger with her cheek. This simple act of affection is too much for the Marquis to handle. He stumbles away from the cage, his face burning bright red. Barely holding himself together, he admits that this tiny woman is driving him absolutely crazy. The second Froey is out of sight, Hermes' whole demeanor changes. She realizes asking for his help was a mistake. She needs to escape on her own. After a few failed attempts at bending the bars and picking the lock, she comes up with a new plan. Her only option is to climb over the top. She fashions a makeshift rope from cotton, confident it will hold her tiny weight. Recalling her tree-climbing days, she tosses the rope over a high bar, ready to make a break for it. Stealing her nerves, Hermie begins her daring escape. She starts climbing her cotton rope, but the slick metal bars are way harder to grip than she expected. This is nothing like climbing a tree. Pushing past the difficulty, she tells herself she can't give up and stretches higher. But just as she's about to make progress, her hand slips on the smooth surface. The rope gives way, and she plummets back down, landing with a hard thud on the floor of the cage. Her grand escape plan ends in total failure. Hermie groans in pain from the fall, thinking she must have cracked her skull. Luckily, she's not seriously hurt, but the impact leaves her dizzy and disoriented. She blames her reckless escape attempt on pure exhaustion. Just as her head stops spinning, Froey returns, asking if she's awake. Instead of being caught, Hermie just looks relieved, asking why he took so long because she was waiting for him. Her unexpected words completely disarm the Marquis, who can only think about how adorable she is. Switching tactics, Hermie begs Froey to let her out of the cage, claiming she's too scared to be alone and just wants to be beside him. Froey immediately shuts her down, saying it's too dangerous. He's worried she'll disappear. Hermie insists she can't run away since she doesn't have wings, but he still refuses. Backed into a corner, she blurts out that she likes him too much to leave. The sudden confession leaves Froey completely stunned as she tearfully explains that being suffocated in the cage is awful when all she wants is him. Froey is completely floored by her confession. Taking the chance, Hermie asks again if he can please let her out. But he just goes silent, coolly saying he'll think about it. The non-answer crushes her. As she grips the bars of her cage, reality sinks in. Is she supposed to just act like a cute pet until he gets bored? She thought his kindness meant he respected her, but it was all a fantasy. No matter how sweet she acts to him, she's not a person, just another beautiful prize for his collection. The next morning, Froey arrives to wake Hermie up. He cheerfully offers her favorite apple pie and asks if she wants to go for a walk, but she gives him the silent treatment. Confused, he wonders why she isn't greeting him like she usually does. He quickly connects her cold shoulder to his refusal to let her out of the cage. When she ignores even the pie, he knows she's genuinely angry. Froey is completely stumped, clueless about how to cheer up a fairy who is this upset with him. Froey decides he's not a fan of this silent standoff. He figures if he waits her out, she'll give in first, but he doesn't want to play that game. Looking closer, he sees Hermie is pale and sweating. He asks her to say anything, but she's totally unresponsive. She tries to stand up, only to wobble and nearly collapse. That's when it hits him. She's not just mad, she's genuinely sick. Reaching in, Froey calls her hopeless, his voice filled with a sudden, worried concern for the tiny woman in his care. Froey calls Hermie's name again, but she suddenly sways and then collapses to the floor, completely unconscious. He stares in disbelief for a moment before pure panic takes over, and he screams her name. Later, he brings in a so-called expert, a man named Jovern. But Jovern's first brilliant observation is to ask if the tiny woman is a hamster. Froey loses his patience immediately. He furiously asks if Jovern is out of his mind and orders him to shut up and check her condition, reminding him he was supposed to be good with animals. Jovern finally gets to work, coolly observing that Froey has been hiding a fairy. He points out that for a magical creature, she looks completely human, just small. The mood shifts when he finds the real problem. Hermie is running a fever and has a bump on her head. Froey immediately panics, demanding to know where she's hurt. The guilt hits him hard as he realizes he had no idea she was in so much pain. Finding the whole situation hilarious, Jovern gives Froey some animal medicine and care instructions. Before taking off, Jovern delivers one last worrying diagnosis. Hermie's head injury might be a concussion. He warns Froey to watch her carefully, even if the fever goes down, before making a dramatic exit and slamming the door behind him. Left alone, Froey stares down at the fragile woman in his palm. Hermie is trapped in a fever dream, feeling incredibly hot and breaking out in a cold sweat. Seeing her in so much pain, Froey is overcome with a helpless, gut-wrenching worry for the tiny woman he's supposed to be protecting. With Jovern gone, Froey gently places the unconscious Hermie in bed. He whispers her name, thinking to himself that she's beautiful. Unlike the fairies in storybooks, she doesn't have wings. A chilling thought crosses his mind. This is for the best, because it means she can't fly away and escape him. His collector's obsession deepens as he recalls every little detail he's already memorized, from the tiny moles on her neck and wrists to the other birthmarks he knows are there. This isn't just curiosity, it's a dangerous fixation. As Froey gently holds the unconscious Hermie, his obsession deepens. He's memorized every detail about her, from the tiny scar above her eye to every mole, finding all of it adorable. Laying her on the bed, he's suddenly struck by how incredibly fragile she is. A wave of guilt hits him as he remembers keeping her locked in that cage. He used to love how she would wait by the bars for him, but now he's horrified. For the first time, he admits to himself how thoughtless he's been. Froey stares down, his mind racing. He once thought it was enough just to find her pretty, but now he's crushed by regret. He clenches his fist, wondering if she would have been spared this pain if he'd only understood her feelings and opened that cage sooner. He'd do anything, even give his own life, just to see her smile and be healthy again. This tiny fairy had completely stolen his heart. Because he never put his guard up, she had easily stepped past all his thorny defenses and settled inside without any resistance. Froey comes to a heart-stopping realization. His feelings for Hermie feel completely inevitable. He reflects on how he's kept everyone at arm's length his entire life, suddenly understanding it was all to save a special place in his heart just for her. The Marquis is completely lost in thought, his mind filled with sweet memories that haven't even happened yet. Back in the present, he's a wreck. Slumped over his desk in despair, he quietly pleads for Hermie to please wake up soon. Hermie's consciousness returns slowly. Her body feels incredibly heavy, and her head is throbbing with pain. Through the haze, she hears a familiar voice whispering apologies over and over. As her eyes flutter open, she sees Froey's worried face right above hers. She's stunned by how close he is, but then she notices something even more shocking. The cage bars that always blocked her view are gone. She's finally out. After all her failed escape attempts, all it took was getting hurt. Just as she thinks she should have faked it sooner, Froey gently asks if she's okay. Hermie's mind races. If she seems fine, he might just put her back in the cage. But her train of thought derails when she makes a startling discovery. She's completely unclothed. Mortified, she demands to know what happened. Thinking fast, she complains that she's freezing, hoping for some cover. Instead of a blanket, Froey lifts her to his lips and gently breathes warm air on her. The sudden intimacy is too much, and she quickly insists she's okay. He explains she must have fallen, admitting he'd feared something much worse had happened. Hermie's biggest fear comes rushing back, and she asks if he's putting her in the cage again. She quickly complains that she hates it in there and still feels dizzy. Froey seems surprised, asking if it was really that bad. Frustrated, she reminds him she's told him this countless times. He insists it's for her safety, promising to let her out in the morning, but she refuses to go back. Desperate, she pleads to sleep beside him for just one night. Defeated by her request, Froey lets out a long sigh and finally agrees. As Froey sleeps beside her, Hermie watches him, thinking he looks like an angel. She's hit with a sad realization. This is probably the last time she'll ever see his face. She can't deny that he was a kind and gentle master who showered her with affection. If she were a real fairy, she would have fallen for him completely. But she knows she can't survive on love alone. Hermie hardens her heart, predicting that after an initial rage, Froey will eventually forget her and simply find a new prize for his collection. With her mind made up, Hermie sadly accepts her fate. She believes Froey will simply find a new prize for his collection and quickly forget the wingless fairy who ran away. The thought hurts, but it strengthens her resolve to escape. For a final, quiet moment, she leans over him as he sleeps, gently brushing his hair. In a silent goodbye, she wishes him happiness and thanks him for the affection he showed her. This is the last time she will ever see him, and she has to make it count. Let's jump back to how this whole mess started. At the Pumpkin Blossom Guild, things are a mess. Members are getting fired, and everyone is blaming the guild's terrible finances on a botched deal with a wizard. As the guild's treasurer, Hermie overhears all of it and decides she's the one who has to fix this. Filled with righteous anger, she ignores her worried colleagues and storms out. She's heading straight for the Mage Tower to confront the wizard and get their money back, one way or another. Hermie storms into the massive mage tower, ready to give that wizard a piece of her mind. Inside, she runs into her colleague, Uncle Jen. The poor guy looks totally defeated, thinking about how the guild has gone downhill since Hermie disappeared. Just then, he hears a tiny voice call his name. He stops, confused, thinking he's just imagining it. But the voice calls again, telling him to look down. He lowers his gaze and his jaw drops. Standing on the floor is Hermie, but she's been shrunk to doll size. Despite her new, tiny size, Hermie is causing a massive scene in the mage tower. She furiously accuses the wizards of being scammers and demands they change her back to normal. Onlookers start whispering amongst themselves, connecting the commotion to a new shrinking potion they read about in the papers. Her colleague, Uncle Jen, watches nervously. He recalls his shock at first seeing her shrunken, but admits this crazy plan was their only shot at getting noticed. Suddenly, an imposing wizard taps his staff on the ground, demanding to know who dares cause such a fuss. The powerful wizard cuts the chaos short, deciding this is a matter for a private room. He leads Uncle Jen and the tiny Hermie inside to meet the person responsible for the shrinking potion. But the man waiting for them isn't who they expected. Before anyone can even speak, Hermie's temper explodes. From the safety of Uncle Jen's hands, she hurls a small rock that smacks the noble right in the head. He stumbles back, completely stunned by the attack from the furious, palm-sized woman. The young noble barely recovers before Hermie, still furious, lobs another rock right at him. He cries out for her to stop as the powerful wizard steps between them. The wizard wastes no time, demanding to know if the noble really tricked this woman and stole her contract. Flustered, the guy tries to make excuses, but the wizard silences him immediately. Declaring the matter won't be ignored, he hauls the young noble away. Watching him go from the safety of her colleague's hand, Hermie feels a rush of hope. She can finally go back to normal. The next morning, Marquis Froey wakes up and sleepily wishes Hermie good morning. But when he gets no response, his eyes snap open. The spot where she was sleeping is empty. Panic explodes in his chest as he realizes she's gone. He frantically searches the room, checking her tiny cage and every possible hiding spot, but she's nowhere to be found. His mind spirals as one horrifying thought takes over. Did his priceless new fairy actually manage to run away? He sinks down, wondering what could have happened. Froey grips the empty cage, refusing to believe Hermie would just abandon him. He remembers her confession, that she liked him, that she wanted to stay by his side. There's no way that was a lie. So, if she didn't run away, then who took her? The realization strikes him like a lightning bolt, a mage. He recalls the powerful wizard who had visited earlier, demanding to take Hermie back. Froey's panic hardens into cold fury. He knows exactly what he has to do. He's going to the mage tower. A storm of fury consumes Marquis Froey. He makes a dark promise. If that wizard really kidnapped Hermie, there will be a heavy price to pay. Meanwhile, Hermie is back to her normal life. The guild is flourishing again, and thanks to a massive compensation payment, she's suddenly rich. But despite having everything she ever wanted, her heart feels empty. Staring at a fancy dessert, she realizes she has no appetite. A memory of Froey comforting her with apple pie surfaces, and she understands her perfect new life feels wrong without him. Hermie tries to bury the memories, but she can't get Froey's face out of her head. She blames him for being too kind, making it impossible to forget him. Slumped over her desk, she accepts a painful truth. They'll probably never meet again. Even if they did, he wouldn't recognize her at her normal size. Shaking off the sadness, she resolves to get back to work. But a sudden knock breaks the silence. A guildmate rushes in with shocking news. A nobleman is here to see her, leaving Hermie completely stunned. The guildmate explains a noble arrived suddenly to do business. Since the guild master is out, Hermie takes charge, sending her colleague to find him while she greets the guest. She approaches the reception room, realizing with a start that she never even asked for the visitor's name. Steeling herself, she knocks, enters, and introduces herself as the guild's accountant. But the man sitting there, staring right at her with those familiar blue eyes, makes her heart stop. It's Marquis Froey. Hermie is speechless. What is he doing here? Stepping into the room, Hermie freezes. The guest is Marquis Froey. Her jaw drops, and she can't even get his name out. A single thought crashes through her mind. She's totally screwed. Is this a dream? She admits to herself that she missed him, but she definitely didn't want to see him again like this. Her mind races for an escape plan. Maybe she can return the money and blame the wizard for the deception. But as Froey watches her with a stern expression, She realizes there's no running away now. Hermie realizes she's trapped. Running now will only create a bigger mess. Her only goal is to survive this. Stealing her nerves, she forces a professional smile and asks what brings him to the Pumpkin Flower Guild. Froey stares at her for a moment before recognition dawns. He asks if her name is Hermie. When she confirms, she instantly regrets ever telling him. He puts the pieces together, asking if she's the guild's treasurer. The truth hits him hard, and he sinks back with a frustrated sigh, realizing the whole crazy situation. Froey slumps back, muttering that the situation is absurd. Hermie realizes he's definitely recognized her, but she decides her best shot is to play dumb. Suddenly, another man enters the room. This is Jovern, a fellow collector. He announces he's come to make a deal, having heard that a wizard bought a fairy from this very guild. Hermie forces a pleasant smile, internally cursing the wizard for spreading rumors. Jovern smirks at Froey, telling him he'll just have to find that fairy for him. Froey's expression darkens immediately. His prized treasure now has a rival bidder. Froey calmly states that his own fairy ran away. Hermie stammers, feigning confusion, but Froey isn't buying it. He stalks forward, trapping her against the door with a firm hand. Leaning in close, he begins to describe his runaway prize to Jovern, using Hermie as his model. He lists her black hair and fair skin. Then, his voice drops as he reveals knowledge of extremely private marks on her body, details that prove his ownership beyond any doubt. Hermie's blood runs cold. It's over. He knew all along. With his claim established, Jovern issues a chilling ultimatum. Froey must produce this incredible fairy, or both the Pumpkin Flower Guild and Hermie will suffer the consequences. Cool as ever, Froey simply tells his rival he'll return in 3 days. He then turns his attention back to Hermie, whispering a dark promise that he expects his fairy to be back in her cage by then. To make his ownership undeniably clear, he leaves a sharp, possessive mark on her ear before turning to leave, leaving her utterly frozen in shock. Froey's command was unmistakable: become a fairy and get back in the cage. The weight of his words sends Hermie crashing to her knees. She finally understands this is her punishment for ever defying him. 3 days later, she finds herself at the grand entrance of the Marquis's residence. Her hands tremble in her lap as the reality sets in. She never wanted to return to this place, but Froey had left her with absolutely no choice. She had to come back to protect her guild and herself from his rival's wrath. In the 3 days Froey gave her, Hermie scrambled for a way out. She went to the magic tower for help, but instead of a solution, they served her an eviction notice and told her to get lost. They had already paid her off and even confiscated her contract, leaving her with no leverage. She realized with a bitter fury that they had set her up, paying her hush money to avoid any future responsibility. Defeated, she requested a leave of absence from her guild, still hoping she could one day return to her normal life. As Hermie steps into the grand hall, she forms a desperate plan. She thinks if she apologizes for the deception and just plays the fairy for a little while, his anger might cool down. In her mind, she holds onto the hope that he'll eventually get bored and just let her go. That was her optimistic idea, anyway. But her thoughts are cut short when a hand suddenly grabs her arm. She looks up, and her heart sinks. Towering above her is an enormous, ornate golden cage, a grim reminder of her new reality. Her hope for a quick apology dies the second she steps into Froey's bedroom. It's not a room, it's a colossal, luxurious cage. Iron bars line the windows, and thick cotton pads the floor. Crushed, she sits down, wondering if she'll ever get her old life back. The door swings open, and Froey steps inside. His expression is unreadable as he reminds her that he gave a specific order. She was to return as a fairy. Still in her normal form, Hermie panics and desperately begs him to just listen. But instead of yelling, Froey's expression softens into a chillingly gentle smile. He whispers her name, acknowledging he knows who she really is. He pulls her into a tight embrace, asking where she went and telling her he searched for a long time. Completely thrown off, Hermie stammers that she never intended for any of this to happen. He gently cups her face, reassuring her that everything is fine now. With a look of pure possession, he declares that since she came back, he'll forgive her. All of Hermie's desperate plans crumble. Inside the giant cage, Froey pulls Hermie into his arms, telling her to stay still because it's cold. She flinches, thinking he could have just given her proper clothes instead of holding her like this. He notices her unease and gently asks if she's having trouble sleeping. She quietly admits she is. He even offers her warm milk, but she refuses, explaining that she feels sick with stress despite being hungry. It's in that moment, trapped in his embrace, that Hermie has a chilling realization. She completely underestimated just how possessive he could be. Hermie realizes she completely underestimated Froe's unhinged nature. She feels a twisted sense of relief that he hasn't resorted to immediate punishment for her defiance. Being treated like a pet fairy is humiliating for a grown woman, but she tries to find comfort in the fact that she's at least still alive. Just as she tries to process her grim situation, Froe's voice breaks the silence. He leans in with an unsettling smile, asking if she enjoys being held in his arms like this. His possessive gaze makes it clear there's no right answer. Stuck in his hold, Hermie can't figure out what's going through his head. She calls out his name, but he only hums in response, not giving anything away. Taking a huge gamble, she asks him straight up if he actually likes her. Froe pauses, mulling over the word. Internally, he admits the whole situation is ridiculous. He knows he pressured the magic tower and abandoned all his duties for days, just to catch one runaway fairy. He's fully aware that anyone else would think he's gone completely insane over her. Froe's mind spirals as he stares at her. He couldn't give up. The moment she was gone, a burning rage took over his entire body, making him act like a fool obsessed with one thing, getting her back. He even wondered if his frustration would vanish if he just locked her in the birdcage again. But even as he grappled with these dark thoughts, he couldn't stop. Suddenly, he collapses onto a nearby sofa, completely passed out. Seeing this, a confused Hermie cautiously approaches and calls out his name. As Froe comes to his senses, seeing Hermie makes everything click into place. He realizes that having her back in his home brought him an incredible sense of relief, as if the world was finally set right. In that moment, he knew what he truly wanted. He pulls her into an embrace, admitting he's no longer confused and that he needs her. Looking her dead in the eye, Froe confesses he feels like he'll go crazy without her. Then, he drops the biggest bombshell yet. It doesn't matter if she's a fairy or a human. Froe finally admits the truth to himself. From the moment they met, it was only Hermie who captured his heart. His thoughts turn possessive, imagining locking her in a birdcage forever, where only he could see her. He questions if these obsessive feelings can truly be called love. Clenching his fist, he makes his choice. He looks her straight in the eye and confesses that if this intense desire is love, then he must love her very much. Overwhelmed by his words, Hermie blushes deeply. Noticing her dazed expression, he gently asks why she looks that way. Blushing hard, Hermie claims she's just cold, but Froe responds by pulling her even closer. Squeezed against his chest, she finally admits the truth to herself. She was scared of being just another one of his collectibles, so she ignored her feelings to avoid getting hurt. At the same time, Froe is drowning in guilt. He knows he deceived her and played with her emotions, which is why she ran away. He desperately wonders if she could ever trust his sincerity after everything he's done. With her heart finally open, Hermie makes a decision. She realizes that even if the cage door were unlocked, she wouldn't run away anymore. Gathering her courage, she calls his name, ready for what's next. Froe's gaze softens as he asks if he can kiss her. She simply says yes. He leans in, and the gentle touch quickly turns into a passionate embrace. Overwhelmed by the feeling, Hermie's hand clenches his shirt. They finally pull away, both catching their breath from the sheer intensity of the moment. Emboldened by their intense kiss, Hermie challenges Froe. Telling him if he's going to do this, he should go all the way. To her surprise, he pulls back, confessing he didn't mean for things to get so heated. The dynamic shifts, and Hermie now looks up at him, questioning how he could say he loved her so easily. But then, she makes her own decision. With her heart on the line, she confesses that she loves him, too. His walls crumble as he admits he actually liked her as well, and whatever happens next changes everything. Froe holds her tight, finally admitting he missed her terribly. He confesses he was too much of a coward to face her with the truth about his deception. At the same time, Hermie reveals her own insecurity, admitting she was terrified he wouldn't like her as a regular human. With all their fears out in the open, the last barrier between them shatters. They come together in a passionate moment, their feelings overwhelming them. But even as he holds her, Froe is plagued by guilt, doubting if she could ever truly believe his sincerity now. The passionate kiss quickly turns into something more. The next morning, sunlight streamed into the room as Hermie slowly woke up. She instinctively called out for Froe, but the space beside her in the massive bed was empty. Realizing he must have already gone out, a surprising wave of loneliness washed over her. She had to admit, she was getting used to his presence. The empty room felt strange, and she found herself already missing the comfort of having him nearby. It was clear her feelings were becoming more complicated than simple survival. Wandering the huge room, Hermie realized she wasn't constantly thinking about escape anymore. She wondered if she'd simply gotten used to this life, or maybe even been tamed by it. All she could think about was Froey. When did he leave? And when would he be back? Just then, the door clicked open. It was him. Pure relief washed over her as she called out his name. Looking as handsome as ever, Froey smiled and asked if she slept well. She rushed over, immediately asking where he had been. Froey smiles, holding up a breakfast tray. He explains that he was just worried she'd be hungry and wanted to bring her some food before she woke up. A bit embarrassed by her own relief, Hermie just shakes her head when he asks if she waited long. Froey is completely stunned by her reaction. He thinks about how she's being held captive, yet she still greeted him with such a genuinely happy face. The pure emotion completely disarms him. Deciding she's incredibly cute, he simply tells her it's time to eat. With a playful smile, Froey offers Hermie a bite of food, telling her to open wide. Flustered by the gesture, she insists she can eat on her own. But Froey's intentions are clear. He simply wants to feed her himself. Unable to resist his steady gaze, she gives in and opens her mouth. After she takes the bite, he surprises her by gently wiping the corner of her lips with his thumb. The simple, intimate touch leaves her completely speechless and blushing, their breakfast turning into something much more intense. But wiping her lips isn't enough for Froey. The simple gesture quickly becomes something far more intimate, and the mood in the room completely changes. Hermie is left breathless and flustered by the unexpected intensity. Pushing his hand away, she demands he stop teasing her. Froey just chuckles and apologizes, agreeing they should finish their breakfast. Still blushing furiously from the encounter, Hermie silently thinks to herself that it was a very good meal indeed. After their intense breakfast, Froey asks if there's anything else she needs. He tells her to ask for whatever she wants for the room. Hermie knows it's way too early to push her luck with requests for new clothes or a walk outside. Thinking practically, she comes up with a simple solution for her boredom. Books. She explains she just wants something to read while waiting for him. A little surprised by her humble request, Froey quickly agrees. Clutching her blanket tighter, Hermie confirms that's all she needs for now. Froey agrees to her request, but doesn't just leave it at that. He leans in and gently kisses her forehead, leaving Hermie completely stunned by the tender gesture. Without another word, he turns and walks out, the heavy door closing firmly behind him. Left alone and totally overwhelmed, Hermie collapses onto the bed. She tries to brush off his actions, telling herself this is just how he is. But a deeper conflict stirs within her. She knows that just acting exactly as he wants feels deeply uncomfortable and wrong. Lying on the bed, Hermie's mind is a total mess. She admits that despite everything, a part of her doesn't want to leave his side. But right now, she's so confused, she doesn't even know what she wants herself anymore. She has a sudden realization. She's spent 2 whole months without proper clothes and has somehow gotten used to it. That thought hardens her resolve. She decides she has to ask for clothes as a matter of basic dignity. But a deeper question surfaces, pushing past survival. What is it that she truly desires? As she grapples with her feelings, a clear thought cuts through the confusion. Hermie realizes what she truly desires is to be loved as a person. Not as one of Froey's collection items or a fairy trapped in a cage, but as an equal. She fantasizes about a normal relationship built on mutual feelings. But she quickly dismisses the daydream, calling it greedy. Froey is a handsome and powerful noble who has everything. She's forced to wonder if a man like that could ever truly love a common woman like her. Lying in bed, Hermie lets out a heavy sigh. Her mind races, thinking about how sweet and well Froey treats her. But the thought turns bitter as she grips the sheets, realizing his kindness only exists when she's a prize in his cage. She recalls his warmth, but it's a lonely affection, confined to a space so narrow it's almost unbearable. The worst part is her own feelings. She genuinely likes him so much, which makes being trapped in his beautiful cage feel even more agonizing and sad. Lying in bed, Froey is startled to find Hermie right there with him, and it's obvious their relationship just crossed a major line. But the moment is shattered when Hermie starts sobbing, completely overwhelmed by what just happened. Froey pulls her into his arms, trying to comfort her, but she angrily cries that this is all his fault. Her frustration quickly melts into a desperate kiss. Totally conflicted, she tells him to stop, but Froey just holds her tighter, apologizing as she breaks down in his arms, leaving them both in an emotional mess. As Hermie continues to cry in his arms, Froey finds himself in a fierce internal struggle. He admits that he wants to be good to her because she's so lovely, but a powerful, possessive side of him is fighting for control. He feels a savage impulse to completely overwhelm her, blaming his lack of restraint on how cute she is. Just as he's lost in these intense thoughts, Hermie pushes back, telling him to stop. This snaps him out of it. He immediately softens, asking what he can do for her and requesting a cloth to clean up. Still overwhelmed by their intense encounter, Hermie tells Froey she feels gross. He gently agrees they should wash up and leads her to the bath. A moment later, she's soaking in the tub when she realizes Froey has slipped in right behind her. Flustered, she asks what he's doing. With a confident smirk, he says he's there to wash her, of course. Hermie insists she can do it herself, but Froey simply asks if her limbs don't feel a little weak. His touch immediately proves his point, leaving her flustered and powerless to object. After their intense moment, Froey steps out of the bath, calmly telling Hermie he'll be cleaning up outside and that she should take her time. Hermie meekly agrees. The second he's gone, she sinks into the water, completely mortified by what just happened. Her mind races, screaming that the whole situation is insane. In her overwhelmed state, her body had completely betrayed her. Horrified by her own lack of control, she feels like she has become a beast and has lost all right to judge Froey for his behavior. Sinking into the water, Hermie admits the hard truth. She's just as into this as he is. Every time Froey touches her, her body totally betrays her. She knows if she genuinely hated it, he would stop, meaning his obsessive behavior is partly her fault. Still, she can't deny his appeal. He's handsome, kind, and rich, even if he's a little crazy. Remembering his endless affection, she realizes with a sinking feeling that escaping him within the 3 weeks she has left is going to be completely impossible. Sinking into the water, Hermie admits to herself that she's gone crazy, too. Ridiculously, she finds herself feeling affection for Froey, even for the possessive way he keeps her confined. A dangerous thought enters her mind. What if she stopped overthinking everything and just leaned on his kindness? Her daydream is cut short when Froey reappears, holding out some clothes. He explains that while he's honoring her wish to stop for the day, seeing her like this makes it incredibly hard for him to keep his hands to himself, leaving Hermie utterly speechless. Froey's control is clearly slipping. He tells Hermie that she's just too cute and that if they keep this up, he'll never be able to leave the room. Trying to bring him back to reality, she points out that he's a noble with responsibilities outside the mansion. But Froey just gets closer, his expression intense. He shoots back that if he leaves, she'll only end up crying for him. Slamming his hand near her head, he traps her completely. Shocked by his possessive attitude, Hermie asks what he plans to do now. Hermie desperately asks how long he plans to punish her. Froey denies it's a punishment, but she won't back down, insisting that it is. The truth finally spills out. She's happy with him, and that's precisely why this is torture. It's because he doesn't believe her when she says she likes him. His affection, combined with her constant fear that he'll get bored and throw her away, is tearing her apart. Clutching her chest, she accuses him of planning to keep her until he's tired of her, then discard her completely. Froey twists her confession, demanding to know if her feelings for him mean she won't like Javern or any other man. Exhausted, Hermie asks how long she has to stay like this. Her fear of being thrown away has clearly struck a chord with him. Gently, he lays her down on the bed. His voice is full of conviction as he makes a solemn promise. That will never happen. He tells her to get some rest, leaving her completely stunned. Turning to go, he assures her that he'll be back, leaving her alone to process his shocking words. With his cocky attitude gone, Froey kneels before Hermie. She asks why he's locking her up, and he finally confesses his true fear. He's scared that one day she'll figure out who he really is and leave him. Confused, Hermie asks what he means. Froey turns away, revealing he's always had to be nothing less than perfect. Everyone thinks he's a loner who can't trust people, but he admits the real reason is sadder. He's just a fool who keeps everyone at a distance to protect his flawless image, an act he's kept up since childhood. Froey's confession tumbles out, painting a picture of his childhood. He was a sensitive kid who would cry over sad stories, a boy who was even scared to sleep alone. Terrified of being seen as weak, he built his perfect facade to hide his true self. Listening intently, Hermie asks if he finds that pathetic. But before he can answer, she grabs him and pulls him into a tight embrace. Holding him firmly, she tells him that she's already seen enough of his so-called pathetic side, and she's not going anywhere. Holding Froey tight, Hermie calls him out. She reminds him that he was fooled by a wizard and that he spends his nights acting cute with a supposed fairy. Pushing him back, she demands to know what he's trying to hide now. But in that moment, she realizes something profound. She didn't fall in love with the perfect, impeccable Marquis. The man she truly loves is the one who begged a tiny creature in a cage to act cute for him, a man who seemed a little oblivious. She knows for sure that this imperfect Froey is the one. Gently caressing Froey's face, Hermie makes a bold proposition. She tells him to show his adorable, vulnerable side only to her, promising she'll stay with him forever if he does. Stunned, Froey asks if she's really sure about this.
Hermie confidently says yes.
She knows he'll get anxious and try to keep her chained down, but she warns him that she's a pro at jealousy and obsession, too. In this intense game of desire, he's not the only player. She wants him just as fiercely as he wants her. Hermie looks him dead in the eye, daring him to be as jealous as he wants. She warns him that she'll be doing whatever she wants, too. Stunned by her intensity, Froey can only agree. As she gives him a gentle kiss on the forehead, the deal is sealed. Then, she suddenly pulls back and announces she's going home for a bit. Froey is completely baffled, questioning what she means by home. Hermie calmly explains her old place is a mess and needs sorting out. Seeing his sulky expression, she asks if he doesn't like that idea. Froey immediately clings to her, admitting he can't wait for her return. His anxiety spikes as he asks what he's supposed to do if she just leaves and never comes back. Amused by his instant worry, Hermie asks if he's really doubting her from the get-go. She promises she'll be back soon, but that's not enough for him. Froey needs her to give him her words so he can put his mind at ease. Seeing this vulnerable side, Hermie thinks he's absolutely adorable. She softly agrees, and they pull into a warm embrace. Froey's relief quickly melts into something more intense. Instead of letting her go, he pulls her into a deep, desperate kiss, as if trying to memorize her before she leaves. Words are replaced by a raw display of affection. His desperation to keep her close is overwhelming. He moves from her lips to her neck, making a possessive gesture that leaves her breathless. This isn't just a goodbye, it's a promise and a warning. He's already showing her the obsessive side she asked for, and she's feeling every bit of his claim. Hermie is completely overwhelmed, wondering why Froey is being so intense. But just as the mood deepens, he suddenly pushes her away. Visibly struggling, he tells her to stop, admitting he's trying his best to keep himself in check. He then completely changes the subject, pointing out that she hasn't eaten all day. Unfazed, she challenges him, asking what would happen if he couldn't control himself. Froey insists he's not weak, but his bravado quickly crumbles. He admits his real worry. He's terrified of what might happen if she gets hurt again like last time. Froey's control completely shatters. In an instant, he has Hermie pinned beneath him on the bed. He's breathing heavily, clearly struggling with his overwhelming desire. But Hermie doesn't back down. Looking straight into his eyes, she calls his name, her own voice breathless but firm. She makes it perfectly clear that she isn't afraid and that she wants to be with him in every way. Completely stunned by her boldness, all the Marquis can do is whisper her name, his resolve melting away at her confession. Taking his hand, Hermie drops an emotional bombshell. She asks if he wants to hear her secret, then confesses that he's the only one who makes her heart race like this. She opens up completely, telling him he's the only person she shows this side of herself to. Hearing that she feels the same way, all of Froey's defenses crumble. The intense atmosphere melts into something soft and genuine. He pulls her into a gentle embrace, looking at her with pure adoration, and finally admits that he likes her very, very much. Back at the Pumpkin Flower Guild, Hermie hands in her resignation, leaving her old boss completely stunned. He points out that she still had vacation days left and asks if she's really quitting. With a bright smile, Hermie confirms she's leaving for good. The guild master tries to convince her to stay, mentioning how hard it is to find a competent accountant and reminding her that she always seemed to love her job. But as he speaks, a sudden, shocking realization hits him. The quill pen in his hand snaps under the pressure of his grip. The guild master completely misreads the situation, thinking the magic tower incident scared her into quitting. But Hermie quickly shuts him down. This isn't about running from a bad memory, it's about moving toward a bright future. With a radiant smile, She explains she's found something new she wants to do. Seeing her so genuinely happy, her old boss's demeanor softens instantly. He admits he can't stand in her way when she looks so determined and gives her his full support, proudly sending his best employee off to her next chapter. Her old boss asks if she'll only be visiting every now and then. With a bittersweet expression, Hermie confirms she can't come by often, even though she wants to. He finally notices her traveling clothes and asks if she's going to another province. Breaking into a brilliant smile, Hermie reveals she's going somewhere far, far away, a truly amazing place. Leaving her past behind, she packs up a box of books from her old room, fully prepared to start her brand new life at Froe's estate. Despite only being gone for 10 days, Hermie's old life now felt completely alien. She tidied up her empty home one last time, using her remaining vacation days to prepare for her departure. She knew that quitting her job and packing up her life so suddenly must have looked drastic to everyone else, but her boss had let her go without prying. Catching a glimpse of her reflection, she suddenly felt a wave of anxiety. She worried her expression looked strange, then wondered if she'd maybe gained a little weight before a concerning realization hit her. Her spiral of anxiety is cut short when her fingers brush against a small, strange mark on her neck. A forgotten memory suddenly snaps into focus, and her eyes widen in shock. It couldn't possibly be from that night, could it? The scene changes, placing her in a warm bath with Froe. The next morning, Hermie's patience is already wearing thin. She's just relieved no one has noticed the very obvious marks Froe left on her neck. While walking through town, she nervously adjusts her collar, wishing she'd worn something with better coverage. She stops dead in her tracks, deciding she absolutely has to scold him for this when she gets back. But then she sees an ornate carriage waiting just for her, leaving her to wonder what on earth he was planning now. As Hermie heads towards the carriage, her cheeks burn, replaying recent events in her mind. She thinks about Froe's total lack of self-control and how he called her mole cute. Arriving at the fancy ride, she finds the doorway completely blocked. Annoyed, she asks the person to move so she can get inside. But when the door fully opens, her jaw drops. Lounging inside isn't a coachman or a guard, it's Froe himself. Stunned, Hermie can only stare in disbelief, wondering what he's planning now. Froe returns to find Hermie resting, but her expression immediately sets him on edge. Annoyed, he demands to know why she's making that face, reminding her he promised he'd be right back. He seems genuinely offended that she might have thought he'd stay away for a whole day. Instead of being intimidated, Hermie finds his childish sulking surprisingly refreshing. Back at his mansion, he would do anything she asked. Seeing this raw, unfiltered side of him feels like she's finally peeling back the layers to discover the real man underneath. As Hermie waits, she reflects that relationships aren't always sweet. She believes people have to clash and make up to build a truly strong bond. Her thoughts are cut short by an indignant Froe, who accuses her of not being able to wait even one day. He asks if she thought he'd vanish for 2 months again. Annoyed, Hermie explains he rushed her out before she could even properly resign. But Froe just waves her off, saying she had nothing important to do there anyway, leaving her completely speechless. Still in the carriage, Hermie complains that he rushed her out before she could even pack. But Froe just dismisses her concerns, casually offering to buy her all new things. Not falling for his smooth lines, she accuses him of having too much experience with this sort of thing. Froe's expression shifts as he asks if she's jealous. But then he completely flips the script, leaning in with a blush and admitting that he's the jealous one. He whispers her name, gently cupping her face and pulling her into a long-awaited kiss. The kiss deepens, leaving Hermie completely breathless. She pushes weakly against his chest, trying to stop him, but Froe just holds her closer. He tells her she can be as jealous as she wants, before dropping a total bombshell. He confesses that while he initially wanted to possess her, he's realized he'd rather she be the one to tie him to her. Totally caught off guard by his sudden vulnerability, Hermie says his jealousy is a little scary. Unfazed, Froe simply leans in and asks her, "Why not?" Froe tells Hermie it's impossible for him not to be jealous, admitting he's feeling it even at that very moment. A completely baffled Hermie asks what he could possibly be jealous of. He begins rattling off a list of his insecurities, her stopping by her house, wondering if she was hiding another man, and even who she was saying goodbye to at the guild. Before he can continue, Hermie places a hand over his mouth, telling him to stop. She declares he has a serious problem, but Froe just asks if she'll still understand him. Hermie understands that deep down, Froe still doesn't fully trust her love. Even so, he can't bring himself to let her go. She realizes he's fighting a war against his own greed and obsession, a struggle she finds both pitiful and incredibly endearing. She quietly hopes for a future where he won't feel anxious when she's out of his sight and can finally believe her words of affection. Snapping back to the present, Froe says it's nice being out like this, but Hermie admits she would have rather stayed in the room. As their carriage rumbles along, Froe points out the changing scenery. Unimpressed, Hermie asks what difference it makes. He explains that a new setting lets them see new sides of each other. She playfully tells him he still has a lot to learn, and he agrees. But when he starts getting a little too familiar, she pushes him back, reminding him they're almost there. He asks what he's supposed to be studying then. She calls him greedy, and he just smirks, pulling her close and declaring that a collector's greed is endless. Froe gets a little too familiar in the carriage, but Hermie pushes him away, insisting they've arrived. He complains that it's not nearly enough. As Jovern greets them at his grand estate, Froe leans in and calls Hermie a pervert for wanting to try things in an open place like the garden. A flustered Hermie retorts that it's his fault. He's just too handsome, and that's what gets her worked up. 2. Taking her confession seriously, Froe cheekily suggests the garden fountain for their next rendezvous, causing her to call him insane. As their argument continues, Hermie insists they need to find a private place for their activities. Clearly annoyed, Froe begins to walk off, forcing her to follow and apologize. She asks if their little study session is over, but he stops her, pulling her close. He whispers that it's far from over. They're just taking it to the room. He playfully asks if she was planning on studying alone, which earns him an infuriating remark. He pouts that he thought she loved him, and she confirms she does, even when he drives her crazy. Froe is deeply moved by her words, admitting that her confession alone brings him immense joy. He can only imagine how much happier he'll be when he can fully trust that love. For the first time, the notorious collector finds himself restraining his own desires, enduring the wait for her, the ultimate prize of his life. As they walk through the grand garden, he looks forward to the day when his empty, gilded cage is finally filled with her love, making his collection and his life truly complete.